All right, time now to delve deeper into this issue, and I can finally engage my two guests here with me in studio. One, of course, is my colleague, NTV's Seth Olale, who was at JKIA last night with our other colleague, cameraman Robert Gishira, covering the events, and also beside him, Hassan Kulundu. He is the Deputy Secretary of the Kenya Editors Guild. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us. Hassan, I'll begin with you. Let's just refresh our minds about the images and that raw footage that we saw just a few moments ago on NTV about what happened at JKIA last night. It was indeed very, very dramatic, unfortunate. As the Deputy Secretary of the Kenya Editors Guild, what's your reaction?
Thank you, Smriti. First and foremost, it's highly regrettable, and I must say that pass my best regards to the Citizen TV journalist Stephen Leto, who was assaulted, and you could see him being assisted by fellow journalists. Police officers also, I wish that would wish to ask them to understand the role of media in these kind of situations. As much as they could be following orders, they must understand that sometimes they act beyond their powers, and one of these days they might be held responsible. Individual officers might be held responsible for that kind of act. So nobody can say that he was obeying orders from above to assault journalists in that manner. Nonetheless, to my fellow Kenyans, I just want to juxtapose the two issues, the footage. First of all, let us look at the footage that we had from the live footage from Sekolia. All right?
That was from actually, this morning?
This morning. I think you saw, first of all, we started speaking
yes,
to,
that's correct.
And Sekolia was telling us where he was.
Yes, correct.
Take it very far away from the scene. And then juxtapose that with what we have seen what transpired yesterday when journalists were in close proximity to the scene. And then we go back, and I actually call the attention of many of Kenyans and other people who care to listen to me to the motto of the Washington Post. It says that democracy dies in darkness. Now you can see this morning, actually, since yesterday when you could see what was going on and where Sekolia was, nobody knows what's going on in that place. I can assure you that many Kenyans are worried. You must be very worried when you do not know what's going on. So these are the issues that we as journalists, we always say that please allow journalists to do their job. There are Kenyans who may feel that the actions of police was okay, the actions of the administration to block Miguna was okay, the action to throw away journalists was okay because Miguna can be seen to be an irritant. Nonetheless, Kenyans now understand that between yesterday and now Sekolia is not anywhere there. There's no journalists we don't know what's going on there. And this is how democracy begins to die. And Kenyans start becoming very, very much worried when they realize that the media cannot be allowed to be told what's going on in their own country. And the moment you are not aware of what's going on in your own country, I can assure you, we don't know next what's going to happen to us.
Right.
That's my expression that we read.
All right, thank you, Hassan. Seth, as I've said numerously, you were there at the JKIA last night. You were one of the reporters that was stopped from doing your job. Let me just get your reaction on what transpired last night. As a journalist, how do you respond to that? And also the fact that this morning journalists have now been barred from accessing the airport.
Well, thank you so much, Smriti. I'll start by stating that on May 3rd, the world will be marking the World Press Day, or rather the World Press Freedom Day, as set by the United Nations. And this particular scenes actually does not go well at this particular era and this particular period in journalism. But just going back to what you've asked me, journalists started arriving at JKIA as early as 11 a.m., some 12 p.m., and we were just covering normally the scenes, and this is what we've been doing for the last many, many years. And because the points that we were covering, it's a public access free zone. There's no sign whatsoever of any restricted area sign or anything. So we were just going by our business until at about 11, when Raila Odinga arrived, and of course we went to intervene. But thereafter, all of a sudden, we started seeing heavy police deployment, both uniformed and undercover, plainclothes police. And just moments later, without any hint, without any warning, without any order from any police officer, all of a sudden we were surrounded and they started attacking us and they started clobbering journalists, and you can see the aftermath. And it's not only Robert Gishira or even Citizen TV's Stephen Leto who were injured. We also had other media personalities whose equipments were damaged. And for example, like the NTV camera and the live unit was literally kicked, and we also lost the lighting out of it. And so this one put us in a very awkward position because we didn't expect. We expected maybe someone would just come and tell us we want to leave this area, right. But that did not happen. And they were doing this saying, like, if I just can quote one police officer saying that, you know, you're supposed to leave, you can't do anything, and we won't listen to you. And so that is what happened yesterday.
And as a journalist covering such an event with what unfolded, what's your reaction? I mean, are you completely dismayed? Has it empowered you even further? How does it make you feel?
Well, utterly shocked. Many of us there, we were very, very stunned because it did not just end there after the first assault. Moments later, when we were just trying to, we even pleaded to get our equipments out of there because some of us had left our tripods, our live view units just next to where the immigration desk was, but they didn't allow us. They told us they wouldn't care if anything happens to them. And so we were so terrified, I must say. Most of us didn't expect that assault. And this one really made us, know that this particular career we are in, or this particular cause, we just have to take it right on, and also that it's a calling, because we never expected to be in such a scenario, and one would be frightened, one would back off. But I think by the end of the day, because even we left, some journalists left their cars, and because we were being chased, right, so violently, so everyone came to the NTV's van, and we went together to Nation Center, and so we were dropping each and every journalist. Mm-hmm. And so what inspired me was the conversation thereafter in the car while we were leaving the airport, because the journalists were saying that, we must soldier on, and these are trying times, but we will get over it.
Hassan, it is of course encouraging to hear that journalists will continue with their job, and they won't let an incident like this stop them from doing their job. But having said that, what happened last night was completely unacceptable. So really, what is the way forward for journalists? Are they just meant to sit back and say, okay, well, you know what, tomorrow I'll carry on? Or is there any sort of action that can be taken, because it is unacceptable?
Well, first and foremost, what transpired, the assault that was meted out on the journalists is a criminal offense.
Right.
And legal action, appropriate legal action can be taken against the officers in charge, or there's what we call command responsibility. The officer who was in charge of the entire the entire operation and the entire platoon, let me say so, can be held accountable, mm-hmm, for those kind of actions, because certainly that's an officer who acted beyond his powers as a journalist, even as a police officer. Right. So even if you're supposed to restrain people, that's not the way you go about it. You don't break the law in order to enforce an order. So I think within the circles as journalists and various institutions that represent journalists, like the Editors Guild, we shall follow up those issues. We shall take it up with the appropriate authorities to ensure that such a thing does not occur. The reason why this is happening is because it gives encouragement to other people to assault journalists.
Yeah.
That's the danger, because if people can see journalists being assaulted by police officers, tell me what other people do. For instance, there's a time when I think there was a function where in which there's an ODM function where, again, journalists were assaulted by people, supporters of that particular party at a certain place. We condemned it. But now we see it coming again from police officers. It's going to become a trend. There was a time in this country, I think around 2002, when KBC journalists were assaulted in NAC rallies.
Right.
And it was very sad. And some of those journalists who were assaulted, nowadays I can see them, they are members of parliament. They have gone into politics. They were in KBC. So we don't want this, we don't want to encourage a situation where journalists can be assaulted and be intimidated, and we look at it as if it's normal. We're not going to accept that. Smriti, let me remind Kenyans of something. Because after all this drama, I think the bigger picture should come out. And the media should pick up now the story. Beyond the harassment, beyond the beating. The whole issue now that Kenyans should be looking at is the issue of citizenship. Because the big issue there is, who is a Kenyan citizen? What documents do you need in order to be a citizen? What proof do you have to demonstrate to be a citizen? Journalists are being beaten because Miguna is resisting. Yeah. Is insisting that it's a citizen. Now that's the bigger picture that the media should be picking up, and as much as we shall discuss the issue of harassment, now we must also pick the real issues beyond this harassment. And also the issue of vigilance with regard to the laws we have, the constitution that we have. I have got in mind what you call Germany before the rise of the Nazis. They had got one of the best constitutions, what you call the Weimar Constitution. It was a very good constitution. But because of lack of vigilance, and when institutions of checks and balances were weakened, the way we are seeing it happening in Kenya, it allowed the Nazis to come to power. And they used that opportunity for weakened institutions of checks and balances for them to do what? The Nazis to commit the atrocities that they have committed. And one of the issues that actually made for the Nazi atrocities against the Jews was the issue of citizenship. Because the Weimar Constitution was very weak in defining who is a citizen. It was very weak in explaining who decides who is a citizen. So when Hitler came to power, he used that opportunity. And the executive is the one which had been given powers under that constitution to decide citizenship for different people. Right. So when Hitler came to power, he realized that he has got, as chancellor, he has got powers to decide who is a citizen. He declared Jews non-citizens. And because since he declared them non-citizens, what did he do? He carried them, and since he could not deport them anywhere, he saw it fit to put them into concentration camps. So this issue of citizenship is going to become a very explosive thing in Kenya. Okay. We must sit down now as journalists also, before the courts may come in to interpret who is a citizen. We must start doing what? Discussing this issue. Because tomorrow, even a journalist might go out. There are certain journalists who might discover, who might be realized that we are what? We can be declared to be irritants like Miguna. Right. Then you go out one day, Smriti, they tell you, Smriti, you're not a Kenyan. Yeah. Okay. Let me bring up a press statement that we have received, and Seth, I'll come back to you after that. Well, just to brief you that, of course, this morning the Immigration Department sent the application forms for Miguna to fill out at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as part of processing the regularization of his citizenship. And in a tweet posted this morning at about 8:23, the department said that it had dispatched the documents. This, though, of course, has been followed up by Cliff Ombeta, the lawyer of Miguna, saying that they will not sign those documents. And a press statement has then followed, where the Immigration Department, through its acting director Joseph Munwoki, has said that late last night Kenyans were treated to the unfortunate drama of one Miguna's theatrics at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport when he refused to hand over his travel documents for endorsement as required by the law and international travel regulations. It goes on to say, upon arrival aboard Emirates flight EK719 at about 2:30 p.m, immigration officials, in compliance with the court order, requested Miguna to present the documents that he had used to travel into the country in order to facilitate his entry. Instead of presenting the requisite travel documents he had exited with from Canada, Miguna became unruly and threw a tantrum, saying that he was a Kenyan who should be allowed to enter the country without immigration clearance, as is required
required of all arriving passengers, irrespective of their nationality. His lawyers and officials from the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, who had been given access to the restricted immigration area to witness the processing of Miguna's entry as per the court order, requested Miguna to present his Canadian passport for processing. Miguna refused. The statement continues and says instead he showed his national identification card and demanded that he should be immigrated on the strength of the ID card. The national ID is only acceptable as a travel document to and from Northern Corridor's countries of Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda and Southern Sudan. Miguna's travel had not originated from any of these countries. As we stated earlier this year, Miguna automatically lost his Kenyan citizenship in 1998 when he acquired the Canadian citizenship at a time when Kenya did not allow dual citizenship. And the statement continues, upon the promulgation of the new constitution, which provided for dual citizenship, Miguna was expected to regain his claim to Kenyan citizenship upon requisite application. To date, he has never done so. To enable Miguna regularize his citizenship status, the Department of Immigration has this morning dispatched the requisite application forms to JKIA for Miguna to duly fill for processing. That statement coming to us from the Acting Director of Immigration Services, Joseph Mwanyoki, dated Tuesday, 27th March 2018. So, of course, as you were saying, Hassan, the bigger picture really that, of course, as journalists we will follow is the issue of citizenship, because that is what is causing a lot of this confusion and tension. Seth, just going back to the issue of journalists and the fact that they were covering at JKIA last night and were abruptly and very rudely and violently stopped from filming. Prior to covering such stories, you have covered several sports stories as well, where you cover many arrivals at the airports of legends and sports athletes arriving at JKIA. Just for the viewers' sake, do you ever need a license to film or permission at JKIA to film, just in case anyone might think that actually you shouldn't have been filming?
Well, there's usually no accreditation needed to go at the airport. And over the years, like you've stated, we've been covering the departures and arrival of dignitaries, cutting across all lifestyles, politicians, sports personalities. And what we usually do is just, go through the checkpoint and they just see our cameras and see our IDs and we just walk in. There have never been any restriction. And simply because the areas where we usually cover, they are public free zones and they are not restricted areas. Obviously, when you get into the airport and now starting to process your documents just before you board the plane and pass through the gates, that is when it is restricted. But as we've been covering these particular events right outside the airport, which is not restricted and there are no signs whatsoever.
Okay, well, Hassan, then based on that, what's happening today? The fact that journalists had been escorted out of JKIA with their equipment and told, you can film from Mombasa Road. Is that illegal, unlawful, or simply just unfair? How would you term the fact that we've been barred from accessing JKIA?
It's illegal. Speaking from legalese, then it's also unfair. Because why and what you call equity, the reason why I would say it's unfair is this: the administrative officer or the administrative agency that makes a decision that you can come and film this, but you cannot film that particular time. You cannot film the other one, isn't it? That decision by such a person is subject to under what you call the right to fair administrative action. That one can be questioned. How do you discriminate that you can film, let's say, for instance, athletes returning, our footballers and all that, but on this occasion, you cannot film Miguna's arrival. So those are the issues that we are going to, so we are saying that it's unfair. Somebody deciding for the media what you can film and what you cannot film, deciding that this is a restricted area, you can only access this and you cannot access that. That is not for the administrative officials to decide. They may have some discretionary powers, but in my view, I think those decisions, they make those decisions unreasonably. And the immigration officials who made that decision, I believe they can be subjected to a judicial review to establish if actually their decision as officers who have got powers to allow or deny access. So those are the issues we are going to follow up as the Editors Guild and representatives of free media. Nonetheless, even in situations where we have got restricted areas, which we agree, like the presidential pavilion, we have got places like the control tower, for security reasons, even generous we understand there's some degree of restriction. For security reasons, that's acceptable. Nonetheless, again, if the purpose of filming is meant for freedom of expression, to inform the people, then in such a situation, even the issue of security, national security, cannot be an issue. It can be done what? It can be waived. Right. You cannot hide behind national security and all that to deny media to let Kenyans know how their installations, how their institutions are performing, because these institutions and these officials and these installations actually benefit from public resources. And the government or the officials or Kenyans have fiduciary duty to explain to them how these installations operate, irrespective of the security issues accompanying that.
Okay. All right. We need to take a quick break. Seth, I know I need to release you, but I do have just a couple of questions for you when we return from the break. It won't be very long. And of course, for you, Mr. Hassan, do stay with us. You're watching NTV Today. We've just gone past 12 o'clock this afternoon, this Tuesday, 27th day of March. When we come back, more on this topic. Thanks very much for staying with us on NTV Today. I'm Smriti, Vidyarthi. This morning, the conversation has focused on the drama surrounding Miguna's arrival at JKIA last night and subsequent stay overnight at the airport because he was not allowed to leave the airport. In case you missed some of the footage that we brought to you earlier, this will refresh your mind as to what happened last night. Now, self-styled National Resistance Movement General Miguna is still currently being held at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. That after, of course, resisting government attempts to deport him to Dubai late last night. Now, journalists who were covering the standoff at the airport's arrival terminus, as we mentioned, were brutally attacked by uniformed police officers who also damaged their equipment. Now, this morning, the Immigration Department has said that it has sent forms for Miguna to fill at the JKIA as part of his processing to regularize his citizenship. His lawyer, Cliff Ombeta, has, of course, said that Miguna will not sign those forms. We're yet to learn what really will transpire today. As we've said, journalists have been barred from filming at the airport this morning. But either way, NTV's Seth Olale, as we said last night, witnessed those dramatic scenes in the 9-hour standoff between immigration officials and Miguna's lawyers. Here's a reminder of what happened.
I'm not boarding.
Miguna being forcefully bundled onto a Dubai-bound commercial flight.
I'm not going. Where are my luggage? Where is my passport? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. The captain cannot fly.
Put that down.
The captain cannot fly.
Put that phone down.
The captain cannot fly. The captain cannot.
Shocked cabin crew staring as Miguna tells the flight captain of his plight.
This court order says I must be in this country. Yeah.
Why are they not allowing you to?
Because of politics. They are scared of me. Now you, as a captain, is not allowed to fly me anywhere against my will. First of all, I don't have a passport. Secondly, I didn't book your plane. Thirdly, I don't have status in Dubai. So how am I going to go to Dubai? I don't live in Dubai. I don't work in Dubai. I have no connection to Dubai. So I'm not going to Dubai. Let them kill me. That's fine. Let them kill me. That's what they want. Let them go ahead and do it.
No, they're going to
But I'm not going to Dubai.
Miguna was dramatically whisked away right in front of NASA leader Raila Odinga at the immigration clearing area. The outspoken self-declared NRM general had hinted to us that there were plans to deport him to Dubai.
Almost 8-hour standoff that has been...
There's no standoff. They have just been detaining me in Comunicado illegally with my lawyers.
What are the reasons or concerns?
There is no reason. They have not gotten authority from whoever for me to get into the country. But I don't need authority. The Constitution says a Kenyan citizen has a right to come in and leave as he or she wishes. And that's what I'm doing.
The intervention of Raila Odinga, who arrived at the airport a few minutes after 10 p.m., was futile as immigration officials and police officers refused to allow Miguna leave the airport. Instead, a fierce confrontation between Odinga and security agents ensued at the immigration clearing area. Miguna's lawyers James Orengo, Nelson Harvey and Chris Ombeta watching helplessly as the police stood their ground. Businessman Richard Wanjigi arrived moments later with his lawyer Willis Otieno and tried to gain access into the immigration desk. He too was denied entry.
I will cease to be a problem. I will cease to be a problem when you put me under custody. Yes, if I'm a problem here, it's better I'm inside. Put me under custody inside.
The unceremonial departure of the NASA leader without commenting on the Miguna JKIA drama summed it up.
Learned friend, Mr. Ombeta is saying, Cliff Ombeta is saying that he was undocumented.
He is using the court order that was issued, actually 2 court orders that actually ordered, or rather required the government to release his Kenyan passport, but that has not been done. Journalists who were covering the event were thereafter brutally attacked by security agencies, leaving NTV's cameraman Robert Gishira and Citizen TV reporter Stephen Leto seriously injured. The two were hurriedly rushed to hospital by fellow journalists who had some of their equipment damaged by the police officers. Seth Olale, NTV.
All right, that footage, of course, from last night at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. NTV's Seth Olale was covering that along with our cameraman Robert Gishira, who was assaulted, along with other journalists as well. All right, as we bring this conversation to a close, Seth, as a journalist, based on what you experienced last night, what do you hope to see and improve and change with regard to how journalists are treated by the government?
Well, mine is just to remind the government, and especially the police officers who actually did that operation last night, because we were just doing our job. We didn't take any sides. We usually, we're usually neutral when we're covering events. And there was humor on social media. People were saying the same journalists just recently were highlighting the plight of the police officers in terms of salary. And so many just to emphasize on the World Press Freedom Day declaration that was set by the United Nations, which states that the World Press Freedom Day, or just the World Press Freedom Day, is to raise awareness of the importance of the freedom of the press and to remind the governments of their duty to respect and uphold the right to freedom of expression as enshrined under the Article 19 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that is very clear. It's also in the Kenyan Constitution, because the recent events have not been any encouraging to go by. When you look at last year, the shutdowns and all that, and even this year. And so just to emphasize that as media, actually we're just doing our job and we are neutral in each and everything that we do.
All right, Seth, thanks very much indeed. And Hassan, as we speak based on the events last night, how would you define Kenya's press? Surely we are not a free press if this is what we're experiencing.
Certainly, Smriti, this is a very worrying trend. I'm particularly very much worried about the young people who aspire to be in this profession. I don't think any young person who in our universities or colleges studying journalism would really be encouraged to come and practice journalism when they see this kind of intimidation, assault. This is what we call a chilling. It plays a chilling effect on freedom of expression and freedom of press. It's very sad. But let me use this opportunity, Smriti, to highlight something which I believe Kenyans, we should also take it very seriously, and I wish I want to believe that the government authorities and the political establishment should put this thing into consideration, no matter what. Around February, a few weeks ago, around February, beginning of February, beginning of February, there was, I think it was a CIA report, situation analysis report in different regions. And that particular report, which was sent to Washington, to the committees in Congress, it picked Kenya and Ethiopia. And the report said that Kenya is sliding into dictatorship and anarchy. The report warned that if civil liberties rights continue being muzzled, soon Kenya could implode. And one of the advice from the report was that the US government, the State Department and the White House, they were encouraged to ensure that they strengthen democracy in Kenya, because they say that American interests are well served when Kenya remains a democracy.
Right.
And I think so. It is best, our interests as a country are best served when we remain a democracy. And one of the most important tenets of democracy is freedom of expression and freedom of press. I want to tell our government authorities, despite the fears they may have, the security fears they might have, or the political issues they may have, come what may, let them allow the Kenyan media to remain independent, free, and bold as it is. It is good for us, because in a country where the media is muzzled, things go silent, the population will explode in one way or another. Let them have let them just remember what happened in Russia one time when the Soviet Union was collapsing. Things were going on. The tanks had rolled into the Duma, into Parliament, but the TVs who were intimidated were showing ballet. When the country exploded, they were shocked.
Right.
So Kenyans were, the Russians were asking that, why didn't you tell us? We would be prepared. So I think it's the best interest of Kenyans that we should have a free and independent press.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We certainly hope that the situation does improve. As it stands, though, we are not able to report exclusively on what is happening inside the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport today, because our journalists have been barred from accessing the airport. So it is still very unfortunate. No doubt what happened last night could have serious ramifications for freedom of the press. Gentlemen, thanks very much for sharing your insights. Much appreciated. NTV's Seth Olale there, my colleague, and also Hassan Kulundu. He is the Deputy Secretary of the Kenya Editors Guild. Thanks for your time. All right, so just a quick brief on the very latest, what we know right now regarding Miguna. Earlier, we spoke to NTV's Enoch Sikolia, who told us that journalists are currently operating from Mombasa Road. They are unable to access JKIA. They got instructions that an officer told them that the officer had strict instructions that journalists are not allowed into the airport with equipment. And of course, we also spoke on phone to Miguna's lawyer, Cliff Ombeta, who said that the lawyer team are unable to access Miguna. The last time they spoke to him was at 3 a.m. In the morning, where Miguna had not been fed and he was on a cold floor. So we will do our very best to get as much information as we can, and we'll bring you the very latest as and when it develops.